Hi, Pet the Podcast Editor here. Are you trying to market a business that's just a bit boring? Well, don't worry, because in today's episode, Dan and Lloyd talk about ways you can market a traditionally boring product.
What would you class a boring company as?
I see what you did there, Dan. Ask me the question so I get all the haters.
And Dan reveals the theories behind marketing, suggesting it's not about the product, it's about the audience.
Just producing content about your nuts and bolts isn't going to be interesting. But producing content that ties your nuts and bolts in with Susan's favourite TV show that she's talking about, like, I don't know, Love Island, it'll work much better.
So there you have it. It's not all sports cars and luxury items in the world of marketing. And if you have a run-of-the-mill product you want to advertise to the masses, this is the episode for you. This is episode 110 of the Business Anchors podcast.
We're just a couple of business anchors. Welcome to the Business Anchors podcast. This jingle is slightly too long. This jingle is slightly too long.
How can you stand out on social media in traditionally boring industries, Dan?
Good question, Lloyd, and this episode's going to be all about that. But first of all, I just want to say thank you to Joe Glover from the Marketing Meetup because he's actually inspired this episode.
Has he? How did he inspire it?
Well, I had a recent chat with him and I'm going to be doing a session for the Marketing Meetup about TikTok.
Nice.
And he was talking about some of the webinars they run. And he mentioned one of their top episodes was literally this topic. And when he said it, it got me thinking, like, recently, loads of new customers that we've onboarded at Knowlton have mentioned, I didn't realise you could do creative stuff for boring companies until you mentioned it recently. And I was like, we need to do an episode talking about how boring companies or industries can produce creative marketing campaigns. Because
yeah, it's interesting though how I find it funny how people obviously have jobs, have businesses, whatever, and they think of themselves as boring.
yeah,
I suppose it's just a reality of we all do different stuff. But,
and I think historically at Knowlton, we're kind of known for doing the more out there, like wild, creative marketing campaigns. So if you do work for a traditionally, inverted commas, boring company, people have probably seen what we do and think, oh, our company wouldn't do that. But what people don't know is we do like less wild stuff. We do cinematic content, and it's not all about being, really on the mark.
I think, people feel like limited, don't they? That like, oh no, I'm a boring business, so I can't do good marketing stuff. I just have to do the traditional stuff that isn't really working. Yeah. It's like, no, that makes no sense.
What would you class, we keep saying boring company. What would you class a boring company as? Or like boring industry?
I see what you did there, Dan. Ask me the question so I get all the haters. Thank you for that. Finance.
Yeah, Lloyd, go on.
There's a couple of thousand haters for me. Okay. Insurance. Come at me. Health and safety stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. A few more people that hate me.
Any more?
Do you want me to create any more haters for myself, Dan?
No.
Or are you actually going to chip in?
No. So you're like talking about like boring industries. I guess I think of it
recruitment.
As yes. Yeah. I mean, I think of it as two things. So I think exactly what you're saying, boring industries.
Well, I'm not, you're saying it.
Yeah. So the finance, accounting, like stuff like that.
Oh, come on, Dan.
But I also class it as like boring products. So think of imagine if a company that made nuts and bolts approached us.
Yeah.
Like, can you do a creative marketing campaign to promote our nuts and bolts? I'd class that as a boring product.
We all buy boring stuff, don't we? We all wipe the surfaces of our kitchen with something, and we all wipe our bums, and we all, it's all boring.
Where are you going with this?
Yeah, I don't know.
What else do you wipe, Lloyd?
Nothing.
But things like nail clippers.
Yeah.
Hangers. Imagine trying to promote hangers.
We're just listing more and more people to hate us in different...
Teabag organisers. Have you seen those?
What?
I actually did it.
Teabag. Right. Sorry. As in a product.
Yes. Yeah, no, not a person that organises teabags.
Like an event planner.
No, but I actually looked up boring products, and you can get teabag organisers where you put all your tea bags into like a little plastic.
Okay. Yeah, I've never seen that. That's why I really didn't get that.
So so they're the kind of two ways I see boring companies or industries.
Okay. And why do you think, I suppose, why this whole episode, why are we doing this whole episode? Why do people think it's hard to market those boring things well, if you know what I mean? Why isn't it just like any other business?
I think it's difficult because if you think about like social, everyone is fighting for your attention. So it's not just cool brands. It's not like, oh, Nike and Adidas and Vans and whatever cool brands you think are fighting for your attention. It's your friends. It's your family. It's influencers you love. These are all people who are there on your social, creating content, trying to captivate your attention. So if you like manufacture nuts and bolts, it's probably quite daunting to think, I've got to compete with the likes of this person's mum or brother or favorite influencer to create content. So it's understandable why traditionally boring companies think it's difficult.
I guess it's like you're saying, you sell nuts and bolts and you're trying to sell them. Someone's got to want to spend an extra few seconds looking at some kind of piece of content about nuts and bolts in some way over, like you're saying, another piece of content from a brand that they actually like, or a family member or friend or influencer.
And traditionally, a lot of platforms, algorithms work by serving you content from people who you're showing that you've got an interest in. So like, it's very difficult to initially kind of build a relationship as a nuts and bolts company with John Smith, who's on social to...
Also, even exciting brands and what people would see more as interesting products or services or industries, like everything's exaggerated in marketing and social media. Like you're always showing the best stuff and the good side of things. So it's not even just competing with the normal level of things. It's marketing and it's social. So everything's exaggerated. Like even with this podcast, we have to remind ourselves to like amp up the energy that bit more, because when you're not just having a normal chat, it's weird. You have to amp it up. So everything's exaggerated. So you're competing with like an amplified level of coolness.
And you have to think logically. Like, people don't go on social media to see content about your nuts and bolts company. Like, think about it logically. Why do people go on social? They go on there to connect with friends and family, to consume content from interesting influencers, to get some level of escapism through being entertained and that kind of thing. So it's daunting I keep saying a nuts and bolts company, but it is daunting as a boring company to think, how on earth am I going to create content that people actually want to consume? And the difficult thing is, most brands, their key objective is to sell more stuff, right? Yeah. So their key objective is to sell more stuff. So lots of brands go to the route of, right, I need to sell more nuts and bolts, so I'm going to create more content talking about the great features of my nuts and bolts. Oh, it twists really good. It's soft on your hands when you twist the bolt. I don't know what features nuts and bolts have now, but...
No, because we haven't seen any good ads, have we?
Exactly. However, that's not the right approach, I think.
Right.
Because even no matter how great the features are of your nuts and bolts, still no one's going to be that interested when they're scrolling social. So you need to flip it on its head and like reverse engineer. Why is John Smith on LinkedIn or TikTok or Instagram? What does he want to consume? And then you can reverse engineer and start to create content that he actually or she wants to see, and tie in your product cleverly. And we're going to talk through some of these examples in a second.
Starting with the person you're trying to get in front of and the platform that you're creating content for, rather than starting with whatever you're trying to sell and what you want to shout about it. Basically.
And I honestly think, like, analysing us as an agency, I think this is how we've been successful. Because as a marketing company, we've really focused on how can we have a positive impact on our customer's customer? This is like one of our key values. How do we have a positive, not just on our customers by selling more of their stuff, but how do we create content and run marketing campaigns that their customers actually enjoy consuming? And you see this reflected in our content. Everything we do is focused around, right, what do like marketers from brands want to hear from us? You know, learn it, like lessons we've learned from running campaigns, educational content, entertaining things, taking a piss out of the marketing industry. They don't want to hear us sit here and say, hey, you should come and be a customer of Knowlton because we're brilliant.
And the amazing thing about that, of what we do here, of making sure our customers are happy, is that it provides the people we work with a much more long-term positive impact, because even if our clients, potential customers, aren't ready to buy, so like, oh, I don't need that new beard trimmer yet, I've got a decent one already, or oh, I don't need health and safety gloves because my contract's not up for another year. Because we're creating content that they actually want to consume or they enjoy consuming, they're left with a positive thought about the brand. And then when they need that, when they're ready to purchase, they come back, which is the difference between, I think sometimes there are ways that you can get immediate sales that might produce better short-term results, like the whole disruptive marketing of like, let's just get this crap ad in front of as many people as we can as cheaply as possible and we'll get a load of sales. But actually you're also kind of alienating or annoying loads of future potential customers with that tactic, rather than leaving them feel like, I want to buy when I'm ready. When my beard trimmer breaks, I am going to get a Wall Aqua blade.
And just to make this clear, it is important to create content about your product, your boring product as well. Like, I'm going the other way. Like, yes, you need to create content that John Smith is interested in and isn't about your boring product. But once he's sort of seen that content that's drawn him in, you then do need to strategically like sell whatever you've got to offer. So it's not just about creating fun, entertaining. Like for example, so this is very meta, but this podcast, we focus on sharing our best insights possible, like things we're learning in the marketing space that will help other marketers, tools, apps, strategies that we're learning. But also, we're talking about our client campaigns, the results we're getting for our current customers, sharing examples of how we as an agency are promoting boring companies because we've got a strategic focus on this podcast. It's not just about creating fun, entertaining content. You've got to have both have to work. It needs to be fun, entertaining, but also it needs to sell what you're doing.
And that works on people at different stages of the marketing funnel. So like if we're going meta and using this podcast as an example, some of you will be listening and you're just listening for the value we're providing or the it feels cringy because we're entertaining you. Whatever you come here for. And you might be like, I'm not interested in working with Knowlton or like Lloyd and Dan in any way. I'm just here to get this value. But there's also some of you listening that are like, I used to be like that, but actually now my boss has come to me and we need to do a marketing campaign and I'm looking to work with someone, and actually then it's working when we're talking about these details of how we work with people. It's like, oh yeah, actually that's what I need.
And you know what? Both of those categories of listeners, being meta again, of this podcast are just as important as each other.
You're all brilliant.
So most of you listening, like most of you, won't ever become a customer of Knowlton. But you will become an advocate of Knowlton. And you will share something to someone that then shares something to someone else that then has someone else who they know who works for a company that is looking for our services. So one of the like key questions I hear and things that comes up is, why are you giving so much away, all your secrets and all that crap? The reason is because, yes, most of you won't become customers, but you will become advocates. And that is just as valuable for your company as a customer.
So that nuts and bolts awareness ad that has entertained those people in some way, and they don't want to buy any nuts and bolts at the moment, but they tell their uncle like, oh, I saw this really great ad for these nuts and bolts, and then he becomes a customer. It doesn't matter that person isn't gonna.
Let me give you a really weird example of something that's actually happened in our company recently. So we took on board a company approached us from Australia.
Good.
And we've recently converted them as a client.
Nice.
Please Lloyd, I got I can't concentrate you doing that. I got a message, I can't remember the guy's name, from a guy in Australia saying, hey, from Ched, saying, by the way, I recently was speaking about you in a networking event I went to in Australia. And we've recently had a number of leads and clients come from Australia. And this is because he's not a customer of ours, but he's become an advocate.
That is crazy, isn't it? And it is also weird that we've got a couple of clients in Australia now.
Yeah.
But we've had so many of these, haven't we, over the years? Having the more long-term kind of look at things and being like, I don't need to sell to everyone right now because we're creating this like infrastructure of people that are like, I like this product or service and I'm going to talk about it. And one day I might become a customer, or my friend might, or my colleague might.
Do you know what though? It's way easier to talk about having that long-term approach than actually having it. Because all of us need to pay the bills. So especially when starting out as a new business, we don't have this issue as much now at all, really, because we've built up a brand over years and now have opportunities come to us. When you're starting out and you literally have to pay the rent and you need to get some money in, it's very difficult to have that long-term approach. And I think it's easy for us to sit here and have this advice of like, have the long-term approach, produce content that provides value and attract customers, when really you're sitting there thinking, I literally need a customer right now because I need to pay the bills. So
what if people are traditionally boring businesses listening to this podcast now and thinking, yes, this sounds great, but like what shall I actually do? What's your advice for what I do? Good question.
Now? So I've got a number of pieces of advice, and I'm sure you have too.
Okay.
The first thing is to truly, and this is classic marketing 101, but truly understand the who. Who is it you're trying to convince to do something? And I don't mean the classic like, oh, it's a 40-year-old female who is interested in this and that. It's like truly understanding, what does that 40-year-old female talk about with her friends when they're picking the kids up from school? What like videos are they sharing in their WhatsApp groups? What TV shows are they currently watching and chatting about? Truly understanding the who will then help you create content that isn't just about your boring nuts and bolts. It's like about things to do with their interests rather than your...
That's such a big thing. And I think a lot of bad marketing is based on these, like a lot of personas are used in marketing. So, which can be useful sometimes, saying, this is one of the types of people we want to sell to. Female, 40 years old, has 1 or 2 children, has a part-time job. And it's like very surface level things, but it's not really knowing who you want it to be. And like Dan's nuts and bolts, like you want to be thinking like, oh, our ideal customer is independent business person, like they've got their own van, and they so it could be like, oh, all of those guys or girls have their lunch breaks in their van, and this really relatable thing that there's never any cup holders. There's never enough cup holders in their vans, or like you get to know them on that minute level. Like, what are they laughing about? What are they joking about? What are they taking the mick out of each other about? And what will they really relate to? And then how can you kind of use that?
And some practical, so this is just some ways we've done this, practical ways of actually understanding the who. So as well, if you're a small business, you probably don't have the budget to pay for focus groups and that kind of thing. But like, think about, who do you know in your network that is in that target demographic? This is like a low cost or free way of figuring it out. Who do you know in your friends of friends, family, businesses that you know that's in that target demographic that you know well enough to say, hey, can I have a quick conversation with you and ask you like what you talk about when you're having your lunch break and you don't have cup holders?
And don't make the mistake that a couple of our clients have made over the years of you being outside of that demographic, asking those people, but then feeling that you know better.
Yes, this is the thing.
This is a mistake we've had with a couple of clients that has really caused them to get to have problems and to get much worse results than they could have done. Is being so say you're a man in your 40s and you're into sport and you're selling a product to female teenagers that don't like sport, don't think that you know better. Because even if you're very intelligent, like I think we're intelligent, but we still aren't going to know those things without asking those people. So that is a common mistake that you need to try to avoid.
I also think, talking of mistakes, another mistake is, another mistake people like brands make is they understand the who, so they get who their target market is, and they create content about their interests, but it doesn't tie into their brand at all. So for example, let's say you target accountants as a target demographic, and through your research and speaking to accountants, this is a really weird example, but let's say you find out that they're all interested in peanut butter. Really simple example. Obviously, this is random. If you just started to create content about peanut butter, it's no way tying in with what you offer to that target demographic. So let's say you offer like accounting software to accountants and you just start posting like, oh, peanuts butter's good, isn't it? Whereas I know this is a weird example. Right? Just go with me. Just roll with it. Whereas if you started to create content that analyzed like the top peanut butter companies and how much tax they pay, then you can start to create content that is tapping into the interest of your target demographic, but also tying in cleverly what you do.
The more effort you put in, basically, the better it will be. So I see a lot of posts with people trying to do this, like Dan's saying, but they don't put the effort in. So they just take a picture of them eating peanut butter, and then they write a post like, peanut butter rhymes with nutter. I must be a nutter to work in pensions. And then it's like, you think it's just like a lazy link.
It's such a shit example, but I love it.
But I know that's exaggerated, but that's the thing. It's like a lazy link to try and make something interesting. It's like Dan said, actually, if you went into, you analysed 3 peanut butter companies and how their pension plans for each of them are so different, you compared them, then it's like, oh, this is actually interesting and something that I would want to know about, rather than just that tedious link that, it doesn't really make sense. Because that's, unfortunately, a lot of people try and make these boring entries interesting, but they don't put the time or effort into it, and it turns into that, basically.
Yeah. Another example, another tip for like, if you have a boring company or a boring industry, is to focus on the results your boring thing provides. So like an example of this. So we've recently worked with a safety glove company, and we're getting some amazing results in terms of the opportunities we're generating for this company. And some of the content that we've produced really focuses on data and showing like the percentage of lives saved, like the number of people's lives saved by using these gloves. So it's focusing on either the output of like what it's achieving or what it's stopping happening if it's something negative. Like for example, the safety gloves is they're stopping people dying by stopping accidents, or it could be an output like helping someone get more hair if it's a hair loss thing.
And with that, we really, with the safety gloves, that whole know the person thing that you said about originally, we're connected with them on different levels. So we know those health and safety managers, they firstly, like Dan said, that it's reducing deaths and accidents. So you can relate to them on an emotional level of like, you have the opportunity for people not to die. That's one way. It's like, great. But also getting to know these health and safety managers even more. It's like they all have targets to reduce accidents and that sort of thing. That's probably related to bonuses, pay rises, promotions. Like for that the decision makers' kind of career opportunities, that is incredibly important to them. So actually them changing safety glove supply, reducing risks to that person could be, I can move house and my family can have a better life because that's going to get me that promotion. So it's understanding what they actually want at a deeper level.
It's their drivers. Like this is relating back to that. This is that point again. Understand the who. What are their motivations? Like what are they getting judged for in their company that you can then tap into in your content to make sure you're like, oh, you need to hit these targets to save a percentage of people's lives a year. Our product saves a percentage of people's lives a year. Yeah. You know, and it's talking
to change like supplier for something like that is probably a bit quite annoying for those people, and it's going to take work. Like it's going to be effort to do that rather than just stay where they are. So you need to give them good enough reasons for, and like we said, it might be personal drivers of like, that's going to help me in my job. It might be the emotional things. It could be other things, but you've got to get that in front of them to be able to make them make those decisions.
Sticking to this example, there's another really subtle thing that we did in the content for these ads that I think really helped. And this is probably a bit of a weird example, but in the videos for these safety gloves, I don't know if you remember, Lloyd, we showed a clip of someone speaking to their boss, presenting this solution, which was the gloves, showing them what it looks like to go and present to your boss and say, we should try these gloves. That subtle thing of like them seeing that, thinking, oh, I could go and present to my boss how we could use these gloves, I think is a really clever way of like driving action and getting them to actually do it by showing this is how you do this. Go to your boss like this.
We also showed, so that it's more of like the bottom up approach of like not necessarily targeting the decision maker, but targeting the people that will go to the decision maker to be like, you should do this. And one of the things that we thought about was if they're injured, they're going to have to be at home for weeks on end. They're going to be really bored. So we sort of, there was only one line and a short thing, but we had a guy that had been like his young daughter had put makeup all over his face and he was like dressed as a princess, and we just kind of had a jokey line of like, you don't want to be stuck at home with your kids for 2 months getting over an injury. But it's like, it's
reinforcing the point,
subtle things. Like some people might be like, oh, what a horrible thing, you don't want to be with your kids, but it's kind of like, actually that type of person doesn't want to be stuck at home. They enjoy going out to work and having some of their own time.
I think something else, another tip for you boring companies listening to this, that we've implemented and has been highly, highly effective, is to create content that pokes fun or shines light on shit stuff that happens in your industry. So like we've done this with loads of different companies. So for example, we've done this with an insurance company, to like shining light on the shitty things that brokers do in the insurance world, to make it a bit more interesting than, hey, we sell insurance. It's like that relatable thing of, here's shit stuff going on in your industry. That another example, like a property development training company that we worked with, we shined light on shitty trainers that try and sell you courses that are loads of money and don't actually help you. Like it's trying to think of creative ways of making it a bit fun and interesting rather than just, hey, we sell this training.
There's interesting people behind every boring business. So giving people more of a like behind the scenes look of what's going on and the people in the business is something that is an easy way to kind of get that. Because I know that, you know, if whoever's making the judgment, not me, probably Dan, that like insurance is a boring industry. I know that not everyone that works in insurance is a boring person. Like there'll be really interesting people, and like any other office environment or work environment, there's going to be interesting stuff going on to talk about and show and all that sort of thing.
So I guess just to finish off, like if people are looking for examples of, because it's always useful to see examples of boring companies that are doing it well. Yeah, I've got a few, but can you think of any examples of like content from boring companies or marketing examples? Well,
my only one, and I don't think you'll like it because I think it was in your notes, but Dollar Shave Club is like we always go back to that example. They kind of were one of the first ones to really go out there and sell a boring product in such an outlandish way. So if you haven't seen the Dollar Shave Club adverts, definitely look at them. Straight away you'll realize what we're saying about like they're selling what is, like I said at the start, those boring products that we all use, that we use every day but don't seem interesting, and they go completely crazy with it and create something that's really entertaining to watch. And like, you know, we're still talking about it now years later from when they produced these ads. And of course it's having a long-term really positive effect.
And that's the classic example. Every brand that's boring comes to us and says we want a Dollar Shave Club ad. Yeah. So it's like a classic.
What about what your others?
Obviously, that was one of mine. But I also like the Old Spice ads with the guy on the horse. Like, that's just aftershave, but they make it really interesting and entertaining and fun. Also, Oatly, like a lot of their... And it's not just videos and stuff. It's like a lot of their like print ads and stuff are really interesting, where they're quite tongue-in-cheek and witty and fun. And it's just oat milk. Yeah. There's another ad. You all got to... Right now, Google this. Flea Market Montgomery video. We did a piss take of this a while ago, but it's a guy promoting a flea market by doing a kind of weird song, and like I
would say maybe don't be inspired by that one.
No,
that place is shut down now.
No, but it went viral. It's like a viral video. Yeah. It's just thinking of creative ways that are like classic, and it's cliche, outside the box. Yeah, and I guess another tip: we get some of our best ideas from places like TikTok. Outside of our industry. If
you promote your nuts and bolts company like every other nuts and bolts company, you're going to get the same level of sales. So if you want results that are outside of that, you need to look outside of your industry and
work with Knowlton,
do exciting stuff.
Basically.
Yeah. Obviously, that's always what you should do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Nice. Thank you, Dan. And just so you know, like Dan came up with the idea of this podcast and notes and stuff, and so he wrote down the boring industries we spoke about. So it's actually his.
It's actually he.
It's actually he.
Try and speak better, mate.
Okay, all right. It's actually Dan that was being the one that has offended you, because I remember one time we did an episode about accountants, and I got a really lengthy hate comment. So I just want to be clear. I'm not saying you're boring.
No,
Dan is.
I'll take the rap for it. It's fine.
Okay.
And we'll
See you in your ears next week.